Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Self-Manifest, where we unlock the secrets to manifesting desires and achieving your dreams. I'm honored to share something truly transformative with you before we begin today's session. Through years of studying the human mind, I've discovered the incredible power of manifestation. For those eager to explore their consciousness, I'm presenting a unique tool that aligns with your essence, making manifestation effortless. Click the link below to discover its potential. Let's start today's session.
Okay, so now we're going to get into mine. And for the last several years, I've been lecturing on the 3 waves of volunteers and the New Earth and the UFO material. Well, tonight I thought I would talk about the convoluted universe material, because if you've read those books, there is so many unusual concepts and theories that I get so many questions about. And a lot of times at the conferences, I don't go into the deeper stuff because I don't want to go over the audience's head. And a lot of that material is very deep. So tonight I thought, well, maybe you're ready for it. We'll find out. Because if your eyes glaze over, then I know you're not ready yet. But if you're reading the books, at least you're thinking, and there maybe you'll understand, and it will stir up a lot of questions. Now, I'm supposed to stop at 4, but this is the end of the conference, so we get into a lot of questions. We'll go over, because we get all these emails, and people keep coming up to me even here and wanting more explanations on some of these theories. Okay, but when I started out in the 1960s, nobody was doing any of this. That's why they said I was a pioneer, because there was no metaphysics, there was no New Age. Very few people in the Western world even knew anything about reincarnation. There was no past life therapy, there was none of that. It's hard to believe that now, especially for the younger people, but we lived in a very innocent world, I guess. But there wasn't any of that when I got thrown into this. So I've been at the forefront, I guess you would say, since the beginning. I had no one to teach me how to do this, so I invented my own technique, and that's what I'm teaching all over the world. We call it now quantum healing hypnosis. But I'm doing that all over the world. But in the beginning, it was all past life regression. And I did a lot of that because of the history. I loved the history. And I wrote several of my earlier books dealt with the history. But then things began to happen, and I began to get these other things coming in. See, now it's no longer simple. We hardly ever get normal past lives anymore, but back then that's all it was. But then I began to get these concepts that were coming in that were upsetting my belief system. Now you remember, I don't channel. Everything I write about comes from my hypnosis sessions with clients. And I've had done 45 years of this now with thousands and thousands and thousands of clients. And when many of them keep saying the same thing over and over, there has to be something to it. And that's why I'm the reporter, and I'll take bits and pieces of different sessions to put the puzzle together. But I remember one of the first things that came out when we were doing this was the idea of simultaneous time. And, I was quite comfortable with reincarnation, linear progression. I had taken many people back through 30 different lifetimes, and I would jump them back by 100-year jumps. That was the way I worked. And then these ideas began coming in, and I would think, oh, wait a minute, I got this all figured out. I know how reincarnation works. I don't want somebody upsetting my belief system here. Messing with what I know it. I'm not going to have it changed. But then I got to thinking, if you think that way, you're no better than the church that says, do what we say, believe what we say, and don't ask any questions. So when these ideas began coming in, I thought, well, maybe I should at least look at them and examine them. And one of the first ones that happened when I was doing the Nostradamus material was the idea of simultaneous time. Because, I've got 17 books out there, and I don't know how many of you have read them all. But in that book, we were speaking across time to Nostradamus while he was alive, living in France, writing the prophecies. And it got very complicated. How can we be speaking to him while he is alive? He was not a spirit, he was not dead, he was living his life. And he began to tell me, it's all now. And here I'm trying to figure this idea out. So I'm always asking lots and lots of questions. I have a terrible curiosity. I've got to know everything about everything. So when I got these, I was able to ask questions to them. That's what I call them. It's the source of all knowledge that I've got contact with. And we call it the subconscious in my classes, but actually it's higher self, the oversoul, the higher consciousness. And I first thought I'd stumbled on it later in my work, but now when I go back and read the older books, it was always there, but I just didn't know it. But I found out if I ever had a question, I could ask them. And I said, okay, simultaneous time means everything is happening at the same time. And I said, how can that be? We know you start out as a baby, you grow into a teenager, you grow into an adult. How can that all be happening at the same time? Doesn't make any sense. They said because you're using the wrong terminology. It's not happening at the same time, it's existing at the same time. You see how the words are very important in the way they explain things. They said, we will never know it all while we're alive. It's absolutely impossible. There are no concepts in the human mind to totally understand it. Although Guy Needler has really bent he's trying. But they said it's not the brain, it's the mind. That we don't have the concepts. We'll know it all when we die, but when we're trying to understand it now, we have to do it with the filter of our own understanding. And they said many times there are no words to explain the concepts they're trying to get across to me. So they do the best they can, and many times they invent words, turns nouns into verbs and verbs into nouns to get the concept across. But they said, you can ask questions and we will give you the best we can. And I always say, give me analogies, give me pictures, something that I can understand. But it's the idea that there is no time. Well, there is no time anyway, but we're trapped in the concept. Time is an illusion. And the ETs have said it very clearly. They say mankind will never travel in space until it gets out of the concept of time. That's what holds you to Earth. And they said we are probably the only species in the universe has found a way to measure something that does not exist. So leave it to us. But if there is no concept of time, we have invented it because, we go day to day, hour to hour. Our whole lives are built upon it. So it's very hard to get away from the idea that time does not exist. But with the idea of simultaneous time, it means everything that's ever happened in your life, childhood, baby, adults, everything is all happening now. And it's all still there. Now, I know with the hypnosis that we do, we can go back and revisit those childhood times, and I've had people become those children again. But that means it's all happening now, and all of your past lives and all of your future probabilities are all now, which is very hard for us to understand. But somebody gave me a very good example. um, they said, when you make a phone call and you're in America and you're calling London, 6-hour time difference. Well, when you make the phone call, are you waiting 6 hours for the person to answer you each time you ask a question? No, because when you're talking to them, they're receiving it and answering you at the same time, even though there's 6 hours and a half a world away between us. That's a good idea of simultaneous time. It's all now. Everything is happening now. We realize it when we travel so much, that it's the hours difference, and sometimes it's a whole day difference. We come in on yesterday and then we're coming in on tomorrow in different countries. We soon realize time doesn't exist. It's a mess anyway. But this is one of the things we have to get used to. There is no such thing as time. Everything is happening now. Now, when I began to get all of this, the information I'm getting now, if I had gotten it 30 years ago, I could not possibly have understood it. I would have just thrown it against the wall and saying, no, I can't understand it, and I would have stopped my work. But in their wisdom, they don't give it to you all at once. You can't handle it. They give you spoonfuls. Give you a spoonful of information, digest this. Then give you another spoonful of information, digest that. You don't give a baby a 3-course meal. You give a baby milk, cereal, chopped vegetables. You don't give a baby a steak. So that's what they mean. You have to be given it to you at your rate of progression. Otherwise, you won't understand it. It'll go over your head. So spoonful by spoonful, they were feeding me little pieces of information, different concepts that I would eventually begin to understand. That's when I began writing the Convoluted Universe books. And each one has gotten more and more complicated. If you read those, I always say start at the first one because it's simpler as it goes along. And when I got to the end of Convoluted 3, I said, well, I think you've told me everything there is to know. There's nothing else left that you can tell me. And they said, oh, no. There's more, there's a lot more. And that's when we began to get more material that went into Convoluted 4. I'm now working on 3 more books. I have more than enough for Convoluted 5. But each time they give me another concept that I've never heard, and I have to adapt to that. I'm going to try to cover some of these, and maybe, I know we're going to have to go to questions after we finish because there's going to be too many things hanging out there. I always say that the Convoluted Universe books are for those people who want their minds spent like pretzels. Okay, I was trying to think which one to go with first. I had them listed in the program, but if I don't cover them all, we'll just have to go back and you may ask questions about those. I know I want to get to the backdrop people because that's what everybody's been asking about. But okay, one thing has to do with parallel universes, parallel dimensions, parallel lifetimes. And when I first got this concept, it was a real mind bender. Now, you know, to keep it simple at first, everything is energy, everything. So when you make a decision, you come to a crossroads in your life, you've got to make a decision. Do I get married? Do I get divorced? Do I take this job? Do I go to this school? You're trying to make a decision which road you want to go down. We have these crossroads. And you know, either way you choose, your life is going to be different, won't it? If you marry this person, or you don't, or if you get a divorce, Or if I choose this job, should I move? Your life will be different no matter which direction you go. So you're trying to make a decision. And you have a lot of energy going into making that decision. Then you finally decide, okay, this is the way I'm going to go. All right, what happens to the other alternate decision that you could have taken? What happens to that? It also is created. And another you is living out that other decision. And that gets a little complicated for people. You're living on this life and you're focusing on your decision you made, but another you split off over here and is living that other life. And we're not supposed to know about it because it would be too complicated. That's what they say, you can't know it all. Imagine how complicated it would be if you knew about these other parts, having all these other experiences. I have clients that come to me and they'll say, you know I'm living another existence in another city and I have another family even. I occasionally peek in on them. And they have said this is possible, but you're not supposed to do that because it would cause interference. Because the other reality is not aware of what's going on over here. Now, I hope I'm setting you on what I'm going to get here. These are a lot of complicated concepts. That's the simple thing, way of explaining this. It can also get much more complicated. If it splits like that, it also means every time you make any decision of any kind, it will split again, and again, and again, and again. To where finally there's hundreds of yous living all these different realities. I think you understand a lot of this stuff because he's getting it too. But I know it's hard for our minds to accept, so we don't dwell on it. That's why I call the books mind candy. Read it, well, it's interesting. Then you got to put the book down and go on about your own life. Because otherwise, it can really scramble your brain. And I've also been told that if you don't put much energy in that other decision, eventually it will dissipate anyway. So the one you make now is the one you have chosen, and that's going to be your life you focus on. Don't worry about the other one. I know there's a woman, I'm another person who never got into any of this. I don't know if she's sitting home knitting and watching TV or what. I don't know what she's doing. But my other me didn't get into any of this. I wish her luck wherever she is. But this is an interesting idea, and these are real concepts. And there's something for you to think about anyway. But this means there are all of these other parts of you. So it doesn't matter, you make the best decision that you think for your life. This is where we get into parallel universes, parallel lifetimes. And they keep talking about dimensions. There are thousands of dimensions. The scientists keep talking about fifth dimension, sixth dimension. There are thousands. Many of these dimensions, there will only be a slight difference. And you're constantly going in and out of these other dimensions all the time. You don't notice it unless there's something that gets your attention. I had one woman who was a college student, and she said she came out of her dormitory one day, and there was a lot of construction going on right in front of the dormitory. They had the barriers up and the orange cones, and they were digging up the street. Well, the next morning she comes out of the dormitory. There's no sign of any construction at all. That's what I mean. Unless something happens to catch your attention, you're not even going to notice. You're constantly moving in and out of these. Another one might say, they see this beautiful tree on the block where they live in. The next day, there isn't any tree. We've crossed over just that little bit into the other dimension. It begins to show you reality is not at all what you think it is. Everything is energy. Everything is an illusion. I had one client that said she was out jogging and she saw an airplane coming in, and it was coming in through the treetops, big airliner, and she could see it coming in. She said it's going to crash. She could see it about a block or so down. It's going to crash. And she turned around and ran back to the house, turned on the TV to see if there any news about an airplane crashing. Well, there wasn't. So part of what she wanted to have the session was about, what was that? They said she had crossed over into a dimension where there was an airport over there. And it didn't exist in her normal reality. But see, you don't stay there because it's not your reality here. You all know when you put something down, an object or something, your glasses or car keys, you go back, you can't find them. Then a little later you go back and they're there. They have gone into this other dimension and come back. When that happens to me, I always say, guys, put it back, I need it. But we had one story too where a woman, she lived in an apartment building. She went out of the apartment building onto the street, and it was back like in the 1950s. The dresses, the cars, like she had gone backwards in time into the 1950s. And she's walking down the street, nobody's paying any attention to her at all. And she was getting scared. But she went back into the apartment building and went back up to her apartment. Everything came back to normal. I hear lots of these stories. People on trips, and they'll be out in the middle of nowhere on a road, and they find a gas station, and they stop to get gas, and they say, boy, that gas is cheap. And they fill up their tank, and they go on and find a little hotel that's really low price. They stay the night. Well, the next day, when they want to go back to the gas station, there's no gas station. And if they try to find that hotel again, there's no hotel. I hear these stories all the time. One strange one, this woman, when I'm on the Art Bell and the George Noory show, we get tons of emails when I bring things up like this. And that's where a lot of these stories come from. The one said, she went out to the airport to watch the jets land and take off. She's watching this jet take off and then go backwards, and then go forwards, and then go backwards before it took off. And she, airplanes don't do that. And she'd watched several of them do that. Then she walked out on the street, saw the cars doing the same thing, going forward and going backwards and going forward. And the only thing I could think was that was the juncture point of dimensions, where they weren't solid in one or the other. Have I screwed up your brains enough yet? Okay. Because I know there's going to be a lot of questions, but every time I get these concepts, I write about them and I say, don't ask me to explain them, I'm just telling you what I got. And it's weird. But I think we're going to go into the backdrop, people. This came up in my last book. I put it into Convoluted 4. I could go into a lot more strange concepts, and they may come up with the questioning. But in Convoluted 4, I've got this concept of the backdrop people. The reason I've got Guy here is because in his lecture, he talked about backfill people. And I said, wait a minute. That's the same idea. And he never reads my books.
That's right. I don't read any books these days, purely for fear of having contamination from other people's work and it being stuck in my subconscious and then being regurgitated in my own stuff. So I don't touch anybody's books. I haven't for years.
I don't read anybody else's books either, because I don't want to be influenced. But here he's talking about backfill people, and I've got backdrop people. And so I asked him to come up because everybody keeps wanting more information about it. And all I had was what I wrote about. Well, now I'm getting more information because it's coming through more and more people. It's like when the concept is ready, then we get more and more information keeps coming in. They know when I'm ready and I'm supposed to present it to the world. Okay. Well, the idea, nothing is real anyway. Everything is energy. Everything is illusion. This building where you're sitting right now did not even exist until you collectively chose to come here tonight or today. Wrap your head around that. I'm going to ask you to make sense, because every time I brought that up, they'll say, what? It's like a Stephen King movie they had one time where nothing existed before they got there.
That's right. I mean, what you're doing is you're creating your own realities, and now you've created a huge group reality. And without the huge group reality, this wouldn't exist.
But this shows you, too, how powerful your mind is. Because everything you see, everything that's around you, everything in your life, you're creating and putting there to fill up your world. So that means you can create anything. Nothing is impossible. You can change your life. You can have anything in your life at all. They told me one of the biggest lessons you come to Earth to learn is how to manipulate energy. You can't get out of the Earth school and graduate till you learn how to manipulate energy. What does that mean? Create. You have to learn to create, because this is how powerful your mind is. You can create anything. So that means every time you go anywhere, even go back to your house, it is recreated every time you go into it. I always wonder, where does it go in the meantime?
It's just space.
Back into whatever. But when these concepts began coming up, this is it's a little unnerving. But the backdrop people was really scrambled my brain. And everywhere I go now, they'll say, tell us more about the backdrop people. Okay. You're creating, this is your movie. This is your play. You are it's all that life is anyways, just a game. It's just a play. It's just an illusion. You're going to leave here with your brains really spinning. Okay. But I've had people say that when they go through the death experience in the past life, they look back and they'll say, it's just a play. I see all the actors on stage getting ready to play their parts. I see the actors in the wings getting ready to come on stage and play their parts. It's just a play. But when I was there, I took it so seriously, but now it's like a blink of an eye. So you are the producer, director, and actor in your own play. You're also the script writer, but the script isn't written. It's written as you go along. So you see, you can change it anytime you want. We get so trapped into thinking there's no way out. Not, that this is all there is. When you realize how powerful your mind is, you can create anything you want. This is the goal, the main thing of being alive is learning how to create. And now when the veil is thinning, we're moving into this new earth, we're into the shifting, we're bringing all these abilities back. This is what you're supposed to learn how to do. Okay, but this is your movie. Now they said, it wouldn't be a very good movie, would it, if you were the only person in the movie? Isn't that true? They said people like people around them. So what we do, we don't know this, none of this is done consciously. You have the backdrop people. When you cast a movie, what do? You cast all these extras, don't you? To fill in the background. The backdrop, he calls them the backfill. You cast all the extras to play all the parts of all the people. Those are the backdrop people. And when I go into a crowded airport now, I was thinking, oh boy, look at all the backdrop people I've just created. I shouldn't have put so many into this. But this is what makes it even stranger. The backdrop people are not real. They're not real people. They're not anything. They are energy. It's just energy. Everything is energy. That's why I want him to come up here because, come on up, guy. Because when I was asking about him, I said, you got your information your way, I got mine, and we were comparing what we've got because I had so many questions. And now I'm getting more information about it. And so I think everybody here is real. I'm not sure.
Pinch yourselves quickly and see if you are real.
Okay. But I know we're going to have a lot of questions about this concept. They said because you couldn't go through your own movie by yourself. You have to have other people. Now, the people in your life, those are real. Those are the ones that are on the evolutionary path. We have come in to evolve, to grow, to learn lessons, to reincarnate. We're the ones that are evolutionizing. They're real, and you've made these contracts with all these other people, but these other ones are not. And I said, do they have souls? They said, no. They're just energy. They said it's holographic. It's like being on the holodeck on Star Trek. You know, when you're on the holodeck, they interact with these people, they're real, but then the minute they walk off the holodeck, all these people dissipate. And you're getting the same idea, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm getting slightly, just a very slight difference though, because mine's related to the real people. Because as we evolve, we move out of this particular frequency, and therefore there needs to be a critical mass of individuals to allow those who are still needing to move up to operate. And so these backfill people come into play then. So there's two parts to the
well, they said, I said, can they advance? And they said, yes, they can evolve. There's a possibility of that. But they're still not on the evolutionary path that we are on. They're different.
They're a completely different energy set. The energetic genre of mankind is a very high frequency, very high energy. And these guys, they're lower.
Lower, denser energy. Earth is the densest, lowest planet in the universe to live on. It's the most difficult planet to live on. When you come here, they said we're at the bottom. It's so dense and heavy. So a lot of these people are made up of that dense energy.
That's right. And the thing is that you can tell them. I mean,
he's learned to tell them apart. I haven't yet.
I mean, you just tell them. You can, if you go into a shopping mall, for instance, or a football game, or a basketball game, or anywhere with a large group of people, just walk around and look and feel what's going on, and you can spot them a mile away. They stick out. They're not the same energy set. I mean, clearly there's none here.
If you learn how to, if you learn how to feel energy.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's amazing that I found it quite a dichotomy, you know, that I couldn't understand how we could ascend, but how everybody else could exist when there's the population's disappearing one by one and in tens. And then the information came through in meditation in March last year that there's a series of backfill going on where there has to be a critical mass. And I was amazed when Dolores said that it's there's a similar thing going on for creating the necessary environment for us to evolve by maintaining an environment holographically as well. It's amazing.
But me and Julie have had a lot of discussion about this too, and we said, what would happen if I would go up and interact with one of these people? Because you see them talking and all of that. What would happen if I would go up and interact with them? Would they be real? Then I think it goes along with the idea, okay, you've got your movie. Now you suddenly gave one of these extras a bit part. They have a little speaking part in the movie. But a lot of times too, when you interact with people, it's the way you interact. Sometimes if they need help or you're talking to them like that, that to me is you are helping your own evolvement. Maybe you're helping them also.
Yeah, I mean these backfill, the information I've been getting, the backfill people, they also evolve. And they don't get the chance to have individualized free will. So this is, in general, the first time they've incarnated. So when they're working with us, they gain evolutionary content as a result of that. So they're benefiting. They're helping us continue to evolve, and those individuals who are left behind but still evolving by being here and backfilling, basically.
Because also he's found that the ones that are very negative, they're like the bottom. Those are the very low, dense energies. But they're here, all of this is here to teach us something. That's what it's all about. That's what life is all about anyway. What are you learning? Everything that happens to you, you created to learn from it. So you hear about these things on TV, the murders and the violence going on. How does it affect you? What do you learn from that? That's the lesson of these other entities, to teach us something.
And the thing is that in them doing what we abhor, we learn how to not do it. So we naturally move ourselves out of that zone, out of that frequency.
Yeah, they've told me that before, and it was in my book, Between Death and Life, that if you didn't have these as examples, you wouldn't know what not to do from a moral standpoint.
That's right. And it's important to observe what is considered to be wrong, because there are definitely universal laws being worked with here, and we are shown every day what not to do so that we can avoid it and take a faster track to increasing our frequency and ascend in the process.
Because everybody has bad things that happen in their life, but they have put them there. Before you come into the life, you make your plan, and you make the plan of the events in your life that are going to help you grow. And I have so many clients that have had horrible childhoods and horrible lives, but I always ask them, what did you learn from it? That was the purpose. That's why they put those events in their life, to learn from. And some of them will say, well, I didn't learn anything. It was just a bad experience. Then guess what? According to the law of karma, the law of what we're here for, you have to repeat that class until you learn that lesson. So I tell them, if you learned even one thing from the circumstance, that was the reason for you creating it. Look how powerful your minds are.
I found out that's something called cyclic karma, where if you don't learn the first time, it gets harder the second time, and then it gets harder the third time.
And you're brought back with the same people, same circumstance. You don't get out of anything. Same people, some same circumstances. You just have to repeat it over, and it's always harder the next time. Just like a class in school. So some people will tell me, well, I don't want to have anything to do with that person anymore. I don't want them in my life anymore. I certainly don't want to have to do it again. And I said, you better work it out now. That's the law of karma. See, we've been taking baby steps so far in my books and in the conferences, and now I guess it's getting to where we're beginning to be ready for the hard stuff. We're progressing into college, maybe.
Absolutely. And I just want to very quickly pick up on something that Dolores said about creation and what we're creating here. One of the things I've picked up recently is that we're all part of creating the multiverse, not just this locale here, but we're all creating the multiverse. So think about that when you're starting to create something small, but actually you're part of something much bigger.
Julia, you want to come up? Where's she at? She said she was right here. Okay. Come on up, Julia. I like to have her up when we go to questions. But I was getting more information about it, and they kept saying it's holographic. But I think now our minds are ready for this kind of information, and we can understand it because you're great and powerful beings. You're not at the mercy of the world. I hate it when I get clients coming in that are in the victim mode. Oh, you don't know what happened to me. I mean, this is a horrible life, etc., etc. You listen to this for about an hour, then I tell them, oh, for Pete's sakes, get out of the victim mode. Because everything that happened, you created it for yourself. You want to stand up here or what? Okay.
I think the lady should sit.
Do you like to sit?
I'll stand up and Julia can sit down.
Well, no, that's okay. She does. You want another chair?
Yeah, we'll bring it.
Okay. I like Julia up here when we go into questions. She can put it on the other side of you too. Because with all of my work, all of these years, come on. All of my years of doing this work, I would come home and I'd say, guess what I found out today? And I bounce everything off of her. Because we have long discussions on some of these things. And then when I think I've got to figure it out, goes in a book, then they give me another one. That's what I said. I could not have understood what I'm getting now when I started out. I would just say, I have nothing to do with this, and I wouldn't have written any books. Okay, we want to go. Do you have any questions about this concept of the backdrop people, and then we'll go into questions on any of my work.
Farron, do you want a traveling mic? Okay. Otherwise, I'll repeat the questions, and we're going to travel this mic. So.
Okay, you want to bring it up? Because I want to see if maybe you can trigger some more things that'll help me know what to explore, to get more information on the backdrop people.
Run, Holly, run.
Did you think this is a mind bender? Is it a mind bender? Yes. Okay.
Where do you want me to go first? I'll jump up to where we feel led.
Okay, we've got different ones.
Hello.
We're ready for it or it wouldn't have been brought up. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I just almost finished reading your Convoluted 4. They're wonderful. And yes, one can see the progression, not only yours, but of the information. It's incredible. About the backdrop people, and this is what I read, or the backfilm people, I thought she answered, your subject answered, we are energy. Couldn't it be that not that they're not dense energy, but they're just energy beings that come, be on a holographic journey or something, be there for a minute and go back to energy? Couldn't that be it?
That's what they said. That's
because
like I said.
That's the way I understood it.
It
Not that they're
dissipates. I
dense.
think it would dissipate.
It just goes
like it does
back.
on the holodeck.
Yeah, and then the next thing would be, okay, planet XC5, now go work over there, you know, like traveling energy or energy that is needed or that appears where it's needed. This is my understanding of that, and I found it very interesting.
You know, these people, you never see them again.
No.
They are just there to fill up your need to have people in your world.
Yeah. I'd like to elaborate on that slightly because actually they don't travel anywhere. Everything is everywhere, all of the time.
Well, figuratively.
So all that's happening is the intention to coalesce in one particular location. is what happens, and then they're there. And then they...
Because of your
Yeah.
mind wanting them to be there.
And then the intention changes to be over there for some reason, and then they're over there. So it's not a case of them moving around, it's the energy just changing or morphing into something that it needs to be at one particular time.
Well, then let me finish. I wasn't going to ask her. But wouldn't it be, since we're sparks, we're not the whole, higher self in a body. We're just a tiny, tiny fragment. Okay. So all of the orchestration of each one of our lives here, don't they take part also? My oversoul, my higher soul? So actually, they're all taking part in bringing the backdrop people into our life, because
No, you are doing it yourself.
we're doing it, but don't I have the help of, we call them guides, angels, whatever, but actually they're our higher souls.
Those are all real.
Exactly, but they are our own self, because after all, there's only one thing, the source.
Yeah.
So then we all orchestrate. It's kind of a group thing, isn't it?
It is, but it isn't. if you imagine that we devolve responsibility down from the sources devolve responsibility for evolution to us as its creations, and then we have us being our true energetic selves, the oversoul, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Then devolves responsibility into the spark, or as you call it, or the projection into the various different incarnate vehicles to experience various different aspects of existence. So that's got responsibility for creating as well. So it's devolved responsibility for creation.
Thank you.
But see, that's because we are on the evolutionary path. We have come in to progress. But that's why we have this ability, unknown to us consciously, to create all of these things. But think what we could do if we could organize that energy, and you can create anything you want in your life. You see the possibilities here. Because you're doing it all the time on an unconscious level and don't even know it. Okay. We got some more questions, I think.
So let's say that we are in an airport or at a ball game. Might it be that we might be the backdrop people in some kind of a scenario, life scenario for those folks?
We had this discussion yesterday.
And did you resolve it?
If you're a real
It's
person,
an ongoing learning progression. That's what I love about it. I'm constantly learning new things, and so is he.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the question?
Are we somebody else's backdrop person?
Are we someone else's backdrop?
Well, we wondered about that.
I'm still wondering about it, yeah.
I think, in essence, because we're all interacting with each other within our own reality, our own bubble of event space, then we do become the backdrop person for somebody else. For instance, there's people here who are doing nothing, and they appear to be doing nothing, but they're actually doing something in their own right. So, although we are not truly backdrop people, because we are real people evolving, because we're in the background, you could think of it in those terms.
We're background people, not
Background, with the other extras, the real extras, the ones with real parts, with lines to read.
I keep wondering if they gave me this concept, what's next?
Okay.
Because we keep getting more and more complicated. But see, under that concept, these people in the next room aren't even there.
Thank you all for being in my play.
That means until we open the door and go into that room, none of them are existing either. But believe me, your family are there, your people in your life are there. This is mind candy. You know what I mean by mind candy? You know, think about it, but then, I gotta go on with my life. Don't let it confuse you too much. Where's the microphone?
Right here.
Okay.
All the way in the very back.
Who's talking?
My name's Patrick.
Back here, okay.
Yes, right back here. My question is, if there's always these background people that just kind of fade away when we turn our backs, how many real people are actually walking around on the planet out of 7 billion people?
Makes you wonder, don't it? It's your world, it's your planet. How many have you put in there?
Let's give you an example of something that was stated by Buzz Aldrin back a number of years ago when he was on the moon. Back in 1969, was it Apollo 11 went to the moon? Yeah, 69.
That's
yeah.
when I started back in the
44th
60s.
anniversary, as George Newry said. He said there was 3.5 billion people on the Earth in 1969. Do you know how many people there are now?
7 billion.
There's a lot of individuals there. So a lot of those may end up being backdrop people.
But you know, they're also leaving in mass numbers too.
Yeah, there's a lot of attrition.
But like with the tsunami and all of those, they had 90,000 people go at once. There's a lot of that happening too. There's a balancing of the planet in that way.
I have one more
The
question.
answer to the question is we don't know.
If you're real, if you could just raise your hand so we can just kind of see. All the real people, raise your hand, please. All right, good. Good to know. Thanks.
You know, an idea just occurred to me. This puts an interesting concept on ghosts too, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, that they're just an energy form that hasn't solidified. Who has a mic?
Travis, can you bring it up here in the front?
Okay, we've got some up here. This time, that's what people say. They may not understand my. Here, Travis, here.
She had her hands up first.
Here.
She's been from the beginning.
When I first wrote Convoluted 1, I said, I don't think anybody's going to understand this. And people said they loved it. They said, we may not understand it, but it makes us think. So maybe I'm making you think in a different direction anyway. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so it's a little bit complex. You said that everything we think or decision we make, there's possibly another one of us that's split off doing it.
Yeah.
So then I have killed my brother-in-law in another life.
I've heard this question at other conferences.
I've forgiven him completely in another life. I may have had an affair. I may have been a priestess. I may have, become a preacher. I may have done so many different things that are much better than I am now, or much worse than I am now.
All lessons, all lessons.
So, are those all backfill people? Because I'm the real, or that's one way of asking a question, and the other is, how is that affecting me? That I have such a creative fantasy life and that those things are really real in some other part of the universe?
Well, the one thing you don't realize is this is not the only aspect of you. You are a much bigger soul than you think you are. We call the oversoul the higher self. And that soul, it splits off into fragments. They've given the example of like a facet, and all these facets, and charge. They use the word charge. They mean all of these pieces split off because this way you can have so many more experiences at one time than to living this life, the only life you're living.
But is
So
it better
all
than
these
to be?
pieces are these parts you're talking about, but they're still you.
But have I made the best choice for this part? I mean,
Well,
I could
that's
make
up
a
to
lot
you.
of worse choices, but I could also have made a lot of better choices. And then I have a second question
Well,
also.
should we finish this question
Okay,
first?
okay.
It gets very complicated.
It's unresolved at the moment. In actuality, you can split up yourself into as many different parts as is necessary. I mean, even the possibility of possible possibilities of duality, triality, quadruality can create a splitting off and a completely different parallel condition to you. There can be millions of versions of you doing millions of different things.
Oh, there are.
Do you see why you can't focus on it? You focus on you now and what you're doing right now.
I had a period of time where for a long time I lusted after money and dreamed about finding large sums of money. And then I felt really guilty. And for a 2 or 3 year period, I tried to avoid all dreaming whatsoever and really cut out for a long time. And now I don't lust about money anymore. But so I'm back to being a more normal person and having regular dreams. But
sometimes I wish I could go back to when it was simple. You know, past lives in linear fashion. I still believe in the spirit side, and you're going back and forth, and we know what happens when you die and go over there. But sometimes I wish we could go back to the simple days, but we're evolving, we're getting more and more information.
Okay, and my second question would be, so if we know all this information, and then if we look at mental institutions and the people that are there, that are probably not just crazy people or deserve to be there, and what responsibility, once we know that maybe we have tools or you're learning tools or people are getting all these tools to help someone like that, is there a responsibility?
It's hard to help the ones in the institutions, but I've begun to find out a lot of them I don't think belong in institutions.
Right.
What you'll find is some of these people are actually more aware and awake than we give them credit for. Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
psychiatry had to redefine the definition for schizophrenia, because the definition of schizophrenia used to be hearing voices, but they said too many people are channeling now. We can't have a whole population of schizophrenics.
How many hear voices?
So they had to redefine the definition for schizophrenia. So some of these people may not be that, they just not understood. Okay.
Well, they're seeing all of the options and all the split offs
Yeah,
and all of
they
the...
can see into the
they
other
see all the other
dimensions,
lives.
and
They
they
see-
don't
yeah.
they don't understand. They put them on drugs. You
Right.
know? I don't know how you would help them. It's their makeup of their mind, I
And in
guess.
some instances, some of these individuals are actually connected with other aspects of themselves that are in different lives, in different parts of the world and different parts of the universe.
Yeah.
And they're experiencing it concurrently, which is why people like us who are living in a single way can't understand it, and therefore we institutionalize them because we don't understand them.
Yeah, the veil is so thin that they're not supposed to be doing that, but they are too aware. And sometimes I found too, those who have had experiences with drugs, that they open up that part of their mind unintentionally and are able to get over into that. And that's one of the reasons you shouldn't play around with drugs, because you do open up those other parts of your mind. Okay, where's the... Okay.
Before I ask my easy question, I do have to say that I've often marveled at how many people are in the same place as I am. How many people decided, to take a drive to the supermarket that day at that time. So that's interesting. But my question is to Guy, how you said that you could tell a backfill from a person. How do you do that?
That's what I want to know.
Yeah, for me, it's just I sense it. I can tell. There's an energy around them which tells me that they're different from what we are right here. But also, because they have, in general, are only on their first incarnation, they get totally absorbed in the material world. So they're instantly materialistic. They get very aggressive as well. They want to have riches and fame and fortune very easily. They are totally absorbed by materialism. That's one of the ways of seeing them. And also, this isn't derogatory, they tend to be low in intelligence as well. So it's their first incarnation. It's where we all were at one point. There's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. But they're definitely a different energy signature as well. I can just spot them a mile away.
I also would like to ask Dolores about the splittering personalities. Why is my consciousness in this personality then? Don't the others have my consciousness? The other parts of me?
They do, but you're not aware of them.
No, it's the intention,
Yeah.
But this is my real one then.
Oh yeah, that's the only one you're aware of and the only one you're supposed to be aware of.
Except your other real one also thinks it's the only one.
Yeah, that's.
But you
why-
know, Guy, what you were talking about then, some of these, the ones that aren't real, would also want wealth and everything the wrong way, and that's why they go into the crime element, you know.
That's right. It's
The
just-
negative element, basically.
Yeah.
They that, but that also, like we said, to teach us something too.
Absolutely.
But you know, I mean, your mind could just go round and around if you're saying which is the real me and everything. That's why just treat this as interesting information. Don't dwell on it. I don't want anybody to go off the deep end here.
No, I'm not near there yet.
That's why I never brought this up at any other conference. So maybe you're ready for it. Let's hope
we
so.
are. We are.
Okay.
Okay, in respects to a person who has been institutionalized for whatever reason because they're considered crazy, would that not be their soul choosing that experience or that incarnation? Would that not be part of their choice?
Well, I don't know. I know that we do choose handicapped bodies to learn from. But I think in that kind of a case, it's just they've confused. They've got their whole life is confused and messed up. I don't think they ever choose to want to go into an institution. Unless
Unless it's part of the plan.
maybe the other higher self chose it to teach the other people in the institution something. Go ahead.
In general, it's part of the plan, although there are mistakes, of course.
I never like to hear that.
Really?
I have this vision of this very orderly system, and when they say, oh, we oops, I'm like, that's not a word in this orderly system.
Because when I bring a case home from her and they said, oh, that shouldn't have happened, you know, how'd that happen? And she said,
No.
I'm supposed to make mistakes.
A few moments ago, you said something about some of these other yous dissipate. Did someone say that, or did I
other yous
imagine
what?
that?
Some of the other yous
Dissipate?
As you take
Yes,
a choice.
we said if you're not focusing, that's what you taught with all these other pieces. If the energy is not focused on them,
then they just
and it's not
dissipate.
maintained, it will dissipate back into no other energy.
Right.
So they don't continue living on a life then.
Okay.
Then
That's
it goes back to
reassuring.
backdrop.
Yeah, if you imagine that we're on a main line, our path is a main line, and then we have this opportunity for a duality condition. I mean, and part of us moves off. If that duality condition becomes inefficient or not necessary anymore because the lesson of that has been learned, then that part of us comes back into the mainstream again and reintegrates.
That's comforting. I have one more question. So many people cannot understand why they would choose to suffer terrible child abuse. And I'm a therapist, and I deal with these people all the time. And what you just said, and what I read in your books, is that you learned something. You chose this to learn something. And so in order to get it out of your mind, out of your soul in this incarnation, you need to let it go or forgive it.
Yeah, forgiving is the big thing, but let them examine it first. What did you get out of it? What did you learn? And then, of course, there are always people they have to forgive in the situation. But first find out, what did you learn from the situation? Now they understand that, now you can release it.
Now you can release it.
Because you don't need it. Now you understand why you did it. Release it, forgive the people, and let it go.
And move on.
Yeah.
If you can find a way to release it. That's always a little bit
Oh,
of a
I have an
challenge.
exercise I give.
Great.
I give my students and the people to tell that I work with my clients all the time as a way of getting it released.
Are you going to teach it in level 2?
Yeah.
Good.
It's in
I'm
level
there
2.
this week.
Yeah. They're going to be ready to go back to simple stuff. But you know, that's what I was saying. You said everything is changing. We are all growing if we're shifting. and our abilities are coming back to where we can understand these things. Maybe we never had the ability to understand before.
What they have said in many of the cases where someone did go through child abuse, they said one of the big lessons that they were learning was how to survive.
In terms of everything we're experiencing now, we're only experiencing it because we're becoming more expansive, and that's a function of ascension.
I'd just like to make a comment, and you probably might want to throw your 2 pence in. I did a past life regression with a client, and I stumbled across parallel life, and how that came about. The person was regressed back to around about 1720 in Europe, speaking a foreign language. We communicated in English.
Yeah.
But I asked her to say happy. It was a birthday. She was having a birthday party. And I said, "Can you say happy birthday in your language?" So she spouted something out in a foreign language, and then she said, "The people around me are laughing at me."
People around her what?
People around me are laughing at me.
Because I've just said happy birthday to myself. So I'm thinking, if I'm in the future, how could that event happened in the past? So it had to be simultaneous.
Remember I said everything's happening now?
Yeah, exactly. So that to me was one of those moments, where the light bulb went on, and so I thought I'd just share that. That to me was solid evidence.
That's because there's 2 event spaces. We don't exist in time. We exist in events, and the event space exists in the same space concurrently. So just as Dolores has explained about the different time zones, the two telephones, where some persons in New York and some of the persons in Europe, for instance, and there's about 7 hours difference, the communication is now.
I think that's a very good explanation for it. I just heard that a few months ago.
The lady just there, that's it.
Okay. But when we're working with our clients, we have to keep it simple. But I know on another level, we know what we have learned, but we can't confuse the client because they're living their ordinary lives. And they wouldn't understand this. This is like advanced, no longer Metaphysics 101. This is advanced. But I work with the Swamis and the different ashrams, a Sivananda group, and they have ashrams all over the world. And when I do my lectures, I haven't got into this stuff yet. But even when I've talked about, their students would go up to the Swami and they said, "Is what she's saying true?" And they said, "Yes, before it was reserved for the initiates, the ones who spend their life learning these things. But now, the ordinary person was never allowed to know these things. But they said, this is not new information, this is old information, but it was just reserved for the secret mystery schools and those that spent their lives in training. Now we're bringing all this powerful knowledge to the ordinary person, and that has never happened before."
They call it the holy science.
The what kind?
Holy science.
Because look, in the past, we would all be killed for even talking about any of these things.
For gathering in this manner.
Oh, yes.
I just wanted to make a comment also. I worked in a state mental hospital for almost 20 years with schizophrenics, bipolars, and so forth. And I always felt that they were the ones that could see everything and be in all the times and all the places all at the same time. And that's why they were so confused. And we, with antipsychotic medication, helped dull that down so they could function, because they were so confused. They didn't know how to function.
It's very confusing for them. You can see how it would be.
And one of my favorite patients, he'll probably be there forever. Very chronic with not functioning well, but he and I would have the best conversations. He would talk to me like, I was a social worker, so I was counseling him all the time and talking, and we would go on trips. You know, he said I was with him on spaceships and we'd travel to the sun and we did this and that, and he was, you know, and I would just, of course, I would listen to everything he said because it was so interesting to me. And he'd say, you know, I just live in so many worlds all at once. And I said, yes, I know. But I just wanted to make the comment that when I heard you say that, I was like, yes, because I was the only, you know, you can't say those things in a hospital.
And keep your job.
Yeah. But you know, I teach that, you know, you can talk to your body because within your body is an entire universe. All the cells and organs are an entire universe inside your body. And you can talk to those cells and organs and you can keep your body healthy in that way. And your body loves for you to talk to it. Because when you talk to your body, you're the voice of God. And it loves to listen to you. But I had one client that said she knew how to do that. She talked to the cells and all of that, but when she told the doctor that, they put her in a mental hospital. They couldn't understand how it could be possible. But we published a book on it. It was written by a doctor who was a head of a hospital for 45 years. And he got out, he was finally able to talk about how you can talk to your cells. But see, that's what I mean, they make everybody, something wrong with their mind if they're thinking a little differently. So, who knows? Maybe we're waking people up. I think we got time for a couple more questions, and then we're going to have to stop, okay?
Okay. Well, the first thing that I want to mention is, you know, talking about all the fragmentation is an important concept, but also to remember that we're all part of one. So we really are all each other. And my next aha that I got listening to this is these concepts that seem such mind benders are concepts that come from a higher dimension. So we're trying to make sense in a third reality concepts that belong in a much higher place. So they will never make sense in a third dimension. As we were talking this morning about how you prove some of the results that we get in our QHHT sessions, and you will never get a medical doctor to understand that because they're working in a different level of comprehension than what we're dealing with. So you almost have to enjoy and just go with the flow of this information and maybe not try to get the mind to do such analytical comprehension of it.
When I do my classes, we keep it on the simple, step by step. We don't go into this kind of stuff, but it helps to explain a lot of these things. Okay, I went over because I knew we were going to get into questions, and we're the last thing here. I think that's enough, don't you?
We've got two more over here. Let's do these two people, and then
Then we'll stop. Okay.
No.
Testing. Something just flashed in my mind. I remember in one of your convoluted books, you talked about you're a child of God, and God was also someone's child. Do you remember that?
I talked about what?
You're a child of God, and God is also someone's child.
Do you remember that part in the book?
Yeah. This goes into guys.
And that's what was
because
connecting.
People have asked me many times, where did God come from? He answers those things in his books. But see, that's the God of our universe. But it's like saying God also has parents. So there's other ones over them. Which also brings up another concept. Our God is one we know for our universe. But there are other gods over them and over them and over them.
So is there just one big source over everything?
Yeah, that's cool. It's called the origin in my books, but the Hindus call it the absolute, the all there is. It's the same thing.
But in his book, The History of God, it goes into this. And especially when it goes beyond the source, he talks about all the ones that are over each other. They're all evolving and going higher. So see, you've got a long journey to go even after we graduate from Earth School. You have a lot more places you can go, a lot more things you can learn. Somebody asked me one time at one of my classes, what happens when you learn all the lessons there is to learn on Earth? And you graduate from Earth School, then what? You're bored, you don't have anything else to learn? And they said, what about all the other universes? They've had different laws and regulations. You're never going to get done with it. It's a constant learning process, which can either make you depressed or happy. I don't know.
The last one back here.
One more, yeah.
Hi, I'm a social work therapist, and I'd like to say there are improvements being made. I am a therapist at a drug abuse residential house, and I started there. I told them that I used different techniques and that they would see results very quickly. Well, they needed somebody quickly, so they hired me. And I've had such success with taking them into their inner minds and having them to see their alpha, their inner minds as their spiritual mind. And I use the terminology that they use, and they're using it as with the 12th step. They go into that inner mind, they open up, because drugs have already opened them up so many times they didn't know what it was. And they're able to forgive themselves. We do self-directives, talk to the bodies, talk to their souls. When they come out, they all come out crying, saying that their lives have been changed. They don't feel guilty anymore. They don't need drugs to cover up anymore. And the psychiatrist there, he says he doesn't know what I'm doing, but I keep having success, so just keep on doing it.
Okay, I think...
And the question I wanted to ask was, with all the things that you're talking about that we create, how does psychic readings, tarot readings all play into it if we've been programming and creating, and then we're told that, well, that's not true, that's not going to happen, and you know that you've been creating? How does that play into your reality? Can you change what others see for you?
I didn't get all of the question. She's my translator.
Okay, with all these possibles and possibilities and probabilities and everything like that, okay, then you bring in readers, psychics, readers, things like that, and then you're creating everything. So you have all these possibilities. Then you have readers that maybe say, no, that's not going to happen. How much can you change that? And what are they
I don't
seeing?
believe any of the psychics, the readers. It's all up to you on what you're going to buy. Now, some of them I know are very good. They're very accurate. But remember, you always have the power to change your own reality. Maybe you'll get good advice that will help you steer down another path. But don't buy it all whole hog.
Usually what they're seeing is if you change nothing, this is the probability. That's what they're looking at. It's not written in stone. Future never is.
No, even Nostradamus said that nothing is written in stone. There are too many probabilities and possibilities depending on what you choose. But psychics are good. We all like to go to them. Hope we're going to get an answer. There's nothing wrong with that.
Thank you for joining us on Self Manifest. Remember, you've got the power to make your dreams a reality. Don't forget to check out the link below for more. Stay inspired, stay positive, and keep manifesting those dreams.